Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. A lot to get into in this hour. But the first half hour we get to spend with Congressman Jodey Arrington, who is back in the district, back in Lubbock, and he's been, I know, touring the area the past few days. Welcome back.
Great to see you, Chad. Good to be with you. Good morning to your listeners.
And
great to be back in the district.
Yeah. How long have you been in town?
Been back since Friday.
Okay.
Got in Friday about midnight, actually.
When do you head back?
Wednesday. That'd be tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
What time? Where am I? What day is it? It's a whirlwind, man.
I bet.
I was in Abilene all day yesterday. We had an MLK event in the evening and met with other folks throughout the day, Farm Bureau folks and chamber, some small business guys. Actually, the first guy I ever met when I announced and I went to Abilene, a small business guy, and I said, what are the challenges that you're facing with the federal government? And he said, how much time do you have? Number one. Number two, Obamacare. It's killing me as a small business owner. So I got to go back and visit with him almost a year later now and tell him I got to hit the button that voted yay on repealing, or at least initiating the repeal of Obamacare. So it's been a good to be back in the district. I'm always invigorated being back home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a big part of my job is to go to Washington, but that's where we do the work of the people, and I'm still incredibly honored, and it's very surreal to be there on behalf of West Texas.
Let me ask you about you were with former President George W. Bush and the Bush administration, and you could say there was a little division when President Bush took office. Now you could say there's a little division as well in Washington, D.C. Compare the two for us. You know, what's it like? What's the difference? And is it more partisan now than it was when President Bush was sworn in?
It seems like it is, actually. There was still the Electoral College was playing a role, popular vote versus Electoral College. But that's the Constitution, and the founders set it up that way for a reason. And it served America well. It served rural America well. And in fact, I make note often to my colleagues that 70% of rural America in the swing states voted for Donald Trump. They played a big role in the election of our new president-elect. But I think this was the most contentious election in my lifetime, quite frankly, on both sides. But Donald Trump set a great tone. 2 a.m, I think we were watching when he gave his victory speech. And I thought it was very conciliatory, and I thought he made set the right tone about bringing America together. But unfortunately, there are people on the other side that just won't let it go, and they're just going to make it very difficult on him, including the national media, because he's given them quite a run as well, and holding them accountable for the things that they say, and for their slant and their bias. And it's rare that you have a president that's willing to take not only the Democrat machine on, but also the national media. And so he's getting a lot of blowback for that.
What are your thoughts on and what does it bring to the country when you have represented one of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Representative Lewis, who says that he doesn't believe that Donald Trump was elected legitimately, or he will not be a legitimate president. You have other Democrats who are saying Donald Trump's not going to be legitimate, and we're not even going to the inauguration. What does that do to the country, in your opinion?
It's very divisive, and it's ironic because I actually had a breakfast where John Lewis was speaking. It was an MLK sort of celebration of the life of MLK. There's no question that John Lewis has done good things for this country. I'm surprised, and it's ironic, that a guy that was trying to that worked so many years to bring America together is now dividing us at a critical juncture. I mean, this was a consequential election. Let's be clear. That's another part of this. I mean, yes, it was contentious, but it was also consequential. We know that America was going to bank right or bank left on this election. And thank God we've got somebody that has a constitutional and traditional American value view of our path forward. But yeah, people like John Lewis, who I think is rallying a lot of Democrats. I don't know if there are some 40 now that are going to boycott the election. It's terrible. This is a time when America comes together regardless of party. And this peaceful transition of power is uniquely American, and it's why our experiment has lasted as long as it has. To sort of call into question, to call into question the legitimacy of this election right here in the peaceful transition of power is an un-American act.
Well, isn't it dangerous? Because you have so many on the left. We saw this days after the election where you had people chanting, "Not my president, not my president." And then you have Democrats who are coming out now and saying, well, he's not a legitimately elected president. If I'm overseas and I hear, oh, wow, the United States just elected somebody who, part of the country doesn't see as a legitimate president of the United States, that, to me, that makes the U.S. look a lot weaker than it should look. And also it drives this opinion among maybe some, younger people, millennials, that, hey, you know what? This guy isn't our president. Let's try to really divide up this country.
Yes, I agree with you. Here's what I would add to it, and not that I'm in any position to advise President-elect Trump. He won the election. Don't give these guys any more. Don't give them any more credibility. Don't dignify their un-American response to what has been. By the way, the Russians have hacked us, and they've been hacking us for years, as has China and others. That's no surprise. I have sat through briefings, and some classified briefings, and so I can't go into the details. But I will tell you, my position has not changed, even after classified briefings, that they did not influence the outcome of this election. You know who influenced the outcome of this election? Remember those 70% of rural America, those folks that Obama said cling to their guns and their Bible? Those guys influenced the outcome of the election. The American people said, we're tired. We're done. This is over. No more train of abuses and usurpations, to use words from the Declaration of Independence. We redeclared our independence from big government, from intrusive government, and we gave the power back to we the people. And that's what Donald Trump symbolizes. And people just haven't been able to swallow that. But that's the reality. And so I just think President Trump needs to focus on, we've got such an opportunity. In the House, in my first 10 days, we have been pushing legislation through to reform this regulatory activism and rein in the fourth branch of government that has been choking our, especially small businesses, but our economy across the board. We've initiated Obamacare. We're going to initiate tax reform, and we've got a president that's actually going to sign it. We don't need but 51 votes in the Senate. It's teed up for the president to sign it. Let's focus on keep our eyes on the prize. That's reform. That's returning the government and the power of the government back to the people and making it focused, limited, accountable, and then restore our leadership position in the world. This is a distraction. I don't want the president to be distracted. I understand that when people attack you, you don't want to just leave it out there, but look, he won. Those guys look small for that. We need to be big. This is a big moment for our country. We need to be big, act big, do big things, and we'll be rewarded in the end by the voters. That's my position on it.
When we come back, we'll have one more segment with Congressman Jodey Arrington. We'll discuss some of the legislation that has already been passed, not signed by the next president yet, of course, but at least what the House has passed. And then also Obamacare. It's going to be the big topic for the first 100 days. We'll get into what Congressman Arrington would like to see, the Trump care or replacement care, whatever it's going to be care, what it's going to look like. We'll talk about that when we come back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO, Congressman Jodey Arrington in studio. A lot to talk about. A lot going on in the first 100 days of the administration, which obviously will have a big impact on Congressman Arrington's job and what he does. But y'all have already been busy. You've been taking votes. What are some of the pieces of legislation that you've already cast a vote on?
Well, the first thing I voted on was to not reform the Office of Congressional Ethics. I thought that was just a very ill-timed.
Yeah, short-sighted.
Very short-sighted. There are certainly things to be done there and for due process, and it was a creation of Nancy Pelosi. But anyway, that I just was thinking to myself, when I was on the outside, I'd say when Republicans get power, they'll find a way to screw things up. And I thought, here we go. But anyway, I digress. The things that we're doing on the positive side are reining in the regulatory regime that was created unconstitutionally by Barack Obama. And that's the Midnight Rules. That's Congressional Review Act. So within a certain window of time, we're going to be able to repeal regulations that were done in the dark of night and push through at the last minute here of his administration. And there are lots of them, billions of dollars. There was a recent one at DOE to regulate residential air conditioning that's going to cost $12 billion. So it just boggles the mind. But anyway, you've got the REINS Act, which essentially has the agencies, if something's going to cost, promulgation of a rule will cost $100 million or more, it comes back to Congress to make the decision on sort of cost benefit. And then sort of the Chevron deference is what it's called, but basically the courts defer to the agencies when there's a question and they regulate within that space, that void of uncertainty. Now the deference will come back, if that law is signed, to Article 1, the body that makes the laws, the United States Congress, and those who are held accountable by the people, not unelected, bureaucrats at regulatory agencies. Lots of great stuff there. You know that it's been, I think on average, 80 major rules have been promulgated by this administration, this almost past administration. And on average, it's been a cost annually of over $100 billion. We have created a regulatory state, and it has been a disaster for our economy. Then the next two big things that are going to help get Americans back to work and stimulate growth in our economy and get back the great American economic engine of the world is Obamacare repeal and healthcare reform. I don't even like replacement because it sounds like, and when you say Trump care, I start to shudder.
I don't know what they're going to call it.
I know,
right?
No, I know, but I tell you, the reason I'm nuanced around the issue of replace is I don't want another big government solution to this.
Right.
That's the problem. I mean, my first line in my first floor speech was this Soviet-style central planning of our healthcare system has been an abject failure. We've tried to design it. We've tried to create it and thrust it from top down with mandates, with taxes, with specific plans, many of which don't apply to young, healthy workers. We've got plans that have pulled out. We've got monopolies in states. We need more competition. We need the private sector to drive it. We need states to have flexibility to make Medicaid actually work. It's broken. I've worked with Medicaid in the Medicaid space. There's no skin in the game for personal responsibility. I've said this quote a lot on the campaign, $2 billion in cost, unnecessary cost in overutilizing emergency rooms. But there's no penalty. There's no incentive. So reforms are going to be market oriented. If we open up interstate competition and insurance companies compete for us, our business, cost will go down, quality will go up, we'll have more choices. That's at the core of what the replacement, in my view, ought to look like. If we get another big government solution, I'm not going to be in support of it. The government has a role. Look, markets don't do everything. They fail in this case when it comes to pre-existing conditions. So I think there's a time for government to intervene. That's one of them. And so we're not going to throw out, everything if it makes sense. Pre-existing conditions would be one of them, and I think that's something we ought to keep.
One of the questions that, and I'm not sure if I asked you about this on the campaign trail or not, But it is something that people wonder when Obamacare is repealed and then something new is put into place, whether that is the same week, the same day, and I would love to have your opinion on when that needs to happen.
Sure.
But Obamacare fines, are those going to be rolled back? Are those going to be taken away to where, and should those be taken away immediately where you don't have to go and enroll in Obamacare or carry health care?
Yeah, so you can't repeal it all through this reconciliation. By the way, I'm so blessed. I think West Texas is well served that we're the only Republican from Texas on the budget committee. All of this is emanating out of the budget process. So we get some inside track on this, and we cannot. This is not a complete replacement or a complete comprehensive reform. Although the House has voted on some of those reforms, it can only get at the fiscal aspects of Obamacare. So yes, you will be basically pulling the plug on the mandates, the individual mandates, the employer mandates. But there are other things like the independent review panel that stay until there's legislation. Unfortunately, it's one that will require 60 votes in the Senate, so it'll be tougher to get through. But look, if we don't start now, I mean, they've been clamoring about, do we do it now? Do we wait? Listen, I am crystal clear from the voters of District 19, Obamacare is destroying small businesses. It's killing our families who are just trying to make ends meet. It's especially working class and middle class families. And we've got this process initiated. Here's the other thing. A lot, unfortunately, I think, of Obamacare or ACA was administered through the HHSC. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these things came through administrative action, not necessarily. We've deferred so much to these agencies. Well, the good news in this case is Obama said it just took a phone and a pen to do what he did to America. Well, it'll just take a phone and a pen to undo what he did. And that's the good news. Tom Price, former chair, he's the guy I talked to get on the budget committee. He's a great guy from Georgia, physician. He's been thinking about this and working on a plan and has been leading the Better Way plan. If you go online and look at the Better Way plan for health care, if he's confirmed, will be at the helm. A lot of the things we're talking about, Chad, will come out of his good work. So we don't want to just legislate to legislate. If we can undo a lot of this and put some things in place, tax incentives for consumers, expand health savings accounts, et cetera, more flexibility to the states through HHSC action, I don't want to just pass laws to pass laws. We have too many laws as it is.
We have about a minute or so left. What are some other things in the first 100 days that you think are realistic for people to look for, not only from the next president, but also from Congress?
Well, I'm going to give you one, tax reform. If we do the reform of regulations, which is in play, we repeal Obamacare, and then we reform our tax code. Those three things, that is making good on our promises. And that will go a long way to getting our country back and our economy back. So those are and then I think the biggest issue for me, Supreme Court. I'm so grateful that President-elect Trump has made great selections, and I'm confident he's going to make a great selection on the Supreme Court and other federal seats on the judiciary, and that's going to be a game changer for America.
Congressman Jodey Arrington, appreciate you stopping by today, and I know we'll visit often while you're in D.C. and when you're back here in town.
Absolutely. Great to see you, and God bless West Texas.